There we go. I got the Chinese lady telling me recording it's in progress, so that's good. Um, hey guys, Rich Lopez with the Droptine Traditions podcast, episode 126. Uh, Here with us tonight is Mr. Don Poppe of Misaki Deer Slayer Bow Company. How you doing, Don?
I'm doing good, Rich. How are you?
Good, good. Uh, I warned you earlier that we got a little bit of a thunderstorm going on, which is good. It's much needed because my front lawn was starting to look like Nancy Pelosi's pubic hair. So, I need some rain. Um, Before we begin, I want to recognize and acknowledge my supporters, which is Traps Feather Rests. Daryl Damron makes the best damn feather rests in the planet. Traditional Bohem Hunter Magazine, my friends since day one. Sauk Trail Archery, Mike Roberts. StickbowSupplies.com, Travis Snyder. Whiskey City Trad Gear, WC Trad, David Snide. JesseSavageBlacksmith.com, TraditionalJunk.com, Kevin Bishop. St. Joe River Bow Company, Austin and his lovely wife. TheEthicalPredator.com, Grant Richardson. And StickbowHuntsMX.com, Pancho and Fernando. Muchas gracias para todo. So, that being said, um, Don, you and I have known each other for several years now. And actually, if you look behind me, your bows are in that mix there, over right around here. You could probably
Yep.
see the back of the one you made that I just love. Um, the special edition model, I call it.
Yeah.
Um, but before we begin, you have an announcement to make. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let it rip, brother.
Well, I guess just to make an announcement without too much backstory, and we can get into the backstory afterwards.
Hmm.
Um, I've always made one piece bows, and I've used bear takedowns before, so I'm familiar with takedowns and stuff. But over the past year, I kind of fell into a position where I'm not only making takedown bows, but I'm making metal riser, aluminum riser takedown bows. And I guess I got some laid out here. This is the bow I hunted with last year, and it is designed by Phil Grable, who is of Golden Eagle fame, who designed the riser of the Golden Eagle and a number of other bows over the years. Um, and I'm calling it the Phil Grable Signature SST. So this is a new takedown bow. It's the same design as years past, but actually none of the bows were ever called like a Phil Grable. They were referred to as Phil Grable bows,
Right.
and a lot of them would say by Phil Grable, but he never had like a brand name Phil Grable. And the last versions he had were called SSTs.
What does
And
that? What does that stand for?
I'm
SST.
glad you asked. Yeah, so I asked actually his Phil's good friend, what that stands for, and he said supersonic transport. And he said it was kind of like a 70s term for, I don't know, back in the Smokey and the Bandit days, I guess. You were around for that.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm familiar with a super sport and, all those different
Sure.
letters for cars and stuff, but yeah, supersonic transport. And
That's pretty
um,
cool. Because you never, I have the ads. I was looking through my 1970s magazines today, and I found a couple for the Golden Eagle Pro line and
yeah,
and Root bows,
yeah,
and he had a hand in a lot of that
yeah.
collaborations, if you would. That's what I call them. Because back in the day, I mean, Ben Pearson outsourced a lot of stuff to different bowyers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you never saw Phil's name in lights, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, which I
Yeah,
thought kind of sucked, but
yeah.
it is what it is. And there's not a lot of information online about him
No.
biography wise. I went nuts today. I knocked off work 4 o'clock. So from 4 to 6, that's all I've been doing is pulling down what I can information wise and going through my magazines. I have thousands of them. And he's an amazing man.
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever shoot competitively?
Yeah, and I can fill you in a lot of the history. Now, I've gotten to know Phil over the last, I guess, year and a half or so, but I didn't, know him previously, and there's a lot of people in Michigan and archery circles that know a lot more than I do. But I've been doing the sleuthing like you're talking about for the last year and a half, so I've been able to piece together, along with meeting Phil and talking to him, all those things. So I have a pretty good history of his history, but I guess he was as much a target shooter as a hunter.
Okay.
Um, Unlike a lot of target shooters or some target shooters who aren't necessarily hunters, he's is deep into hunting as target shooting and just fully engulfed in archery his whole life. So yeah, I don't have a good record of like his tournament success per se, but he was definitely shooting tournaments in the 60s, 70s, possibly into the 80s. And he was a director for the Professional Archers Association. And then in 1977 was actually elected president.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not into the target archery realm as much, but I think that's a pretty big deal as far as, leading that organization for, I assume, a couple year term or so in the late.
Sure, yeah. And I came across an article today where he had shot. He competed, I knew that, but there was an article where it noted that he shot a 367 out of 400 with
Okay.
his bow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know the 300 score, but I don't know as much about the different scoring systems and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But and it's one of those things too, like, um, looking up Ernie Root. You mentioned Root earlier, and he had finished in the top 10 several times in like NFAA tournaments.
Sure.
That's pretty good, right? I mean, he wasn't
That's
the next,
nuts.
and I think the same thing with Phil. There's being competitive and there's being the national champion kind of thing, and being competitive is a lot better than I am at shooting. That's for sure. Like I'm sure it's light years and light years than
Yeah.
your average person.
Yeah, I'm better on live game. I don't do targets well. So on your bow that you're making, let's talk
Yeah.
about the materials.
Yeah.
I
All right.
think I sent a text to you because I didn't know if it was magnesium or aluminum.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let us
Yeah.
know.
And that's one thing looking on the internet, you'll find references and going back to the Golden Eagle, and that whole line of risers that he designed, it'll say like aluminum and magnesium. From talking to Phil and from seeing some of the materials he had, I don't see any evidence that he ever used magnesium. And, when I asked him, he said aluminum. He always used aluminum. So I'm not 100% certain, but just for information wise, Phil was working in aluminum and he was a machinist at his family's machine,
Okay.
a Grable Brothers machine here in Michigan. So that's the realm he comes from. But as far as the materials, the basic bow, this one I showed you here, these are cast aluminum. And so, these are things that, I'm not a machinist, but I have the ends milled. So these are leftover castings that Phil had. So they're the original castings, but they were never finished off. So that, the bows that I'm having made primarily now and what mostly will be available is the cast aluminum. And then I've got a good powder coater, which
Okay.
is, I'm learning a lot in this world because I wasn't in this world. And, I hunted with this bow last year
Now
and
you could powder coat at home.
well, I know I looked into that, but
Yeah.
and I found a local guy who does a good job and it's really reasonably priced. So,
Okay.
I was about ready to get an oven
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and there's no doubt having this guy locally do it is a much better option. But boy, it's durable, and that coat, I have a nice, kind of micro texture finish on here. So that's the main thing. But the other thing I got into and some of the stuff that I showed you pictures of is, what Phil originally did when he was prototyping any of these bows, whether it was the Golden Eagle or his later versions, was machine them out of an extruded aluminum billet. So just the way people make compound risers now. This is 6061 aluminum. And
Aircraft aluminum, right?
yeah, yep. And he made a lot of his out of 7075, which is twice as expensive, and it's also twice as strong as steel. And I think a lot of that was him and his good friend Larry Bamford were shooting 90-pound bows.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I saw that when I was doing, the research thing. I was like, Holy
Yeah.
crap. 90 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there was probably some concern about making sure, and, and they're, had him wake. This is a 1/4 inch cut past center. But I made this. So this was new to me. And I think it turned out pretty nice, but I cut it out with my bandsaw, which was an interesting experience, and then use the same sanding tools that I use, to make bows to shape
Sure.
this.
Just
So
change the paper. Just change the paper.
yeah, and I actually use the same paper because I already use like zirconia blue belts,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I use 36 grit to remove a lot of the material. But anyways, long story short, I don't know how many of these I'm going to have available because it's quite a bit of work. But this is a hand cut, as they used to describe them, riser out of extruded aluminum, and it's just like the ones Phil made. And I'm not claiming, to be anything like Phil as far as a machinist or anything, but what I'm
No,
saying,
but that's freaking beautiful. That's a beautiful
yeah,
bow.
yeah, I carefully, I'm pretty good at replicating things, and so, the big thing about these grips, and we can talk for hours and go into so many details, but
But
it's
that's fine. Hey, the stage is yours, brother.
well, and one of what his big deals he was going for was a torque free grip. So, it's a low wrist, it's a small diameter, um, point at the, I guess you call it the wrist, the where you
Oh, the throat?
yeah, the throat. Sorry, very small diameter. So this is about 1 inch in diameter, and that low wrist. And I shoot straight wrist, and I don't have any problems. So to me, it's pretty versatile if you shoot with a palm too. But the idea was that it's a torque free. When you're shooting this, especially for target and accuracy. It's just a neat grip, and I would have never thought I would enjoy shooting something like this. It's so different from the bows I make as far as the grip and everything in the metal riser. But I with it last year, the first time I shot it with my prototype limbs. I mean, it was just so easy to tune, and accuracy was just right out of the box, And I never had much. I used to hunt with a magnesium riser years ago, and I kind of did move away from it somewhat because of the cold.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's older and tougher, but I don't wear gloves when I hunt, and I hold my bow too. So I hunted with this riser last year, and it was fine.
And you killed a deer because I put that picture on Facebook.
Yep. I was able to be successful in archery season last year. So.
And did you say it was the shelf is 1/8 of an inch past center or 1/4 of an inch?
A 1/4 inch. So actually, and I made two of the machine. This is for me a right-handed one, and this is 5/16 past center.
Mm-hmm.
And with these extruded aluminum ones, I can go farther. I don't know. Again, this is new to me. I'm not a compound bow maker or anything like that, but I think you can safely go 5/16 past center. And the cast risers are a 1/4 inch past center as well.
Okay.
So if they're that far past center, and if somebody knows a lot more about aluminum, they can let me know. But I'm pretty sure those extruded aluminum risers are far stronger than the cast aluminum.
Now, being in Michigan, do you know Jeff Nowak?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. He would love that bow because he's all about that past center stuff.
Yeah. I might have shown him some pictures, and it's kind of funny because I made him a blue bow last year that you've seen pictures of.
Oh yeah.
And I could be wrong, but it was probably the week before I shot that deer. I was up north in his neck of the woods, and I dropped off that blue bow to him and met him, and I didn't tell him about this bow. I was trying to just keep it in the bag, for a while, and but yeah, I think he's interested in it. It's
since I announced this podcast with what you're going to make an announcement, people are like bombarding me with questions, and I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just listen, watch the podcast on YouTube. You'll find out.
Yeah.
So, question: the original Phil Grable bows, did the
Yeah.
limbs fit the risers like yours, or is this a change?
It's a change. And I forgot, I have some samples here and I forgot one of the samples, but I think it'll be okay. I'll pull out some more eye candy with this. These are his target length risers.
Hmm.
And this is what on Phil Grable Blue. Because going back in history, his personal target bows were sky blue, and a lot of his he made stabilizers and he made all the sights for the Proline company. He was big into that stuff and making equipment. But I'll use this. Well, I guess I'll use this one. But yeah, you're right. So this is the original design after the
Yeah.
Golden Eagle. And
So
so what he's
how did the bolt work? Did it come through the back?
Yeah, so the bolt comes through the back. And so he's got this piece of aluminum in there. So you actually have to router out the riser block,
Sure.
glue in some splints, if you will. And then, so there's a bunch of steps. It's more than the Golden Eagle, so it is simpler than the Golden Eagle, but it's still quite a bit. And the reason he went with this, and this is from personal communication, he wanted aluminum to aluminum, metal to metal, because he was all about precision alignment, precision fit. He never made limbs himself. He wasn't a bow maker in that sense where he was making laminate bows. He made the risers. He's a machinist. So it's got that precise fit that it locks in. That bolt comes through the back there. And this is the design that he used with 3 different companies. They made it with Darton, the Proline company, and then a company he had with Larry Bamford called Archery 2000. And I
I
believe
remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Oh my
you
God.
remember
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
you actually answered like 3 questions with that answer of yours.
Well, Kittredge Bow Hut magazine quite a bit because
Mhm.
they have a connection with Larry Bamford. So people like Bill Krenz, Marv Klinke shot that Archery 2000 SST. And I believe the limbs were made by American Archery. I'm fairly certain they were made by American Archery.
Well, I saw a small tidbit of information online where Art Laha was involved, and Art Laha owned American Archery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard that part. So the modern limb design and attachment, I did
Okay.
not come up with this. This is in 1998. He made his last version, which is similar to this, and I got one in the basement. I forgot to bring one up, but basically what he did is he's not having the alignment holes go into aluminum anymore. But what he's achieving is they had issues at times with this delaminating.
Hmm.
There's a lot of pressure, especially with those heavy bows. So they would get this would delaminate here, and this is open. So they had, I don't know how common it was, but they had some issues with,
Well, from what I read, they cracked a lot there. A lot of stress
okay,
cracks in that
yep,
area, and
this
apparently
is the
him and
spot.
Bamford changed the design. Actually, he changed the design when with Golden Eagle, and then it went to eventually Proline.
Yeah, and the Golden Eagle is a separate bow that was before this.
Right.
But chronologically, this is 1970 and afterwards. So in 1998, he had his last version, which had a limb riser similar to this. But I chose to redesign the limb to be, similar design to what I make on my Misaki Deer Slayer.
I like that.
Basically, what it is, and this is 7075, but I had these little buttons made, turned on a lathe, and that goes in the bolt hole. They're glued in. I mean, you don't really have to glue them in, but I asked Phil, I said, did you glue those in? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, well, I guess you don't really want to sell a bow that all the pieces come apart, right? But this just goes on the bow just like the other one did. And they're real tight fit. And,
Oh, that's nice.
that back. And so it's a lot. I shot it a lot last year. I feel pretty confident about its durability. It's a little different, there's a lot of material. I guess it's some of the companies that have had somewhat similar designs, like the Predator limb risers, are sort of like that. I guess the Bear Takedown in some ways is similar as far
Well,
as.
your limb wedge, what is that made of? Is that phenolic or G10?
No, I this is actually diamond wood.
Okay.
I'm sticking primarily with laminated woods of some kind, or I have made some out of phenolic. And if I could get woven phenolic at a reasonable price, I don't want to use the paper stuff. But
Have you
anyway, so
played
this
have you played with
listening,
G10 at all? I'm sorry.
not
I drank too much caffeine.
yeah, it's I've kind of tried. It's the folks that make a lot of I-beam risers and stuff. It's a lot easier to get in like half-inch, three-quarter-inch
Gotcha.
thickness stuff. So as far as getting like an inch and three-quarter-inch block or 2 inch, I think it's out there, but that's got fiberglass, and which makes it really strong. But I've just kind of always assumed it's going to be pretty hard on my blades.
It's
And
fairly expensive too.
yeah, but no, there's no doubt like the linen phenolic, like Bear used, would be the best thing to use in these limb risers for sure.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Um,
So let's talk more about Phil. What's he up to?
yeah.
How old is he now?
So he's born 1933, and so he's 92 this year.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I had spoken to you and I had spoken to Travis
Yeah.
from traditionaljunk.com, and we were going to try and get a three-way going here.
Yeah.
And I figured, let me talk to the bowyer who's making these things.
Yeah.
And I suggested maybe I should reach out to Phil. And then you guys both told me you might not want to. He's 92, and I'm having a hard time talking to people 75.
Yeah. No, I mean Phil's pretty sharp, and but he is hard of hearing, and I don't think he talks on the phone much. But he doesn't necessarily. I get you get to 92, and some of the exact details aren't always as fresh. But you kind of remember certain things, I think, because I'm using all the original jigs and fixtures that he had. So, I mean, any limbs will fit these risers, all that kind of stuff. And, I went through those things with him. And he remembers some things about it, but not necessarily everything. And,
Sure.
he's lived a life and he's 92. And
Is he still living at home?
yep, he's living in the same house he ever lived in.
Wow.
I shouldn't say ever, at least since like the 50s or 60s.
Sure. I mean, his whole basically adult life.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a guy named Don Kilgore in Maryland who was a bowyer back in the 50s and 60s, made some crazy target bows. And I got a hold of his number and I called his house, and he was in his 90s then. And I tried to get an interview with him. This was before the internet or any of this stuff. And I couldn't get past his wife. She was like, you're a salesman. It's like, oh my God. It was almost like Satan was calling, So yeah, I had to abandon that idea.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, if you ever came to Michigan and wanted to meet Phil, I don't know that he wouldn't be up for that. But I just don't think, talking on the phone.
I plan on attending the Kazoo shoot.
Yeah.
I don't know how far that is from.
It would be last year he went to that. 2024. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I get my dates right. Yeah, he went to that last year.
Okay. Does he still drive?
No, and he doesn't get around super good. I think I don't know if he would use a walker or just have to sit down frequently, But, I think as far as I understand, he was a machinist his whole life, so he's basically working in a shop. I don't know when he officially retired kind of thing, but that wears on your body, right? And shoot.
Well, you're hunched over all day on a machine. I did it as a young man. One of my summer jobs had to make these little. I call it a widget. It was probably the size of my pinky nail. I had to put out like 1,000, 1,200 a day, and I was like, "What am I doing here?" It's one of those things. So, sidebar on that. My company transfers me to a catastrophe team to handle flood claims in Texas and hail claims on Monday. I'm back to what I used to do because I I complained so bad. My boss couldn't take it anymore. She goes, "You're coming back." And I was like, she goes, "What's so bad about it?" I said, "It's the worst job I've had since picking up dog shit as a kid in my backyard." And she's like, "Wow." She goes, I said, "52 years I've been working. Worst job ever."
Wow.
She just like, "Wow, I've never heard that before." I said, "Well, you just did." So, so start to finish, how long does it take you to put together a bow on this particular bow?
Ah,
If
that's
you
a good
break it
question.
down, because you got to do it in stages. I know that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, in a lot of ways, the limbs, I'm so used to making one piece bows. In a lot of ways, the limbs are a little quicker. I had to get down, like where you drill the bolt hole, right?
Okay.
Like I never made takedowns before, and it's, kind of I set up some jigs, with locator holes to be able to locate in the exact same place every time. So getting some of that process down took a little bit, but I made about 13 sets of limbs now, and it's always hard to say. I mean, the limbs are pretty quick relative to a one piece bow, and I always kind of used to say 15 hours, but and again, too, I mean, I can take my time. This is a part-time job, so I don't have to pump them out
Right.
necessarily.
Now
The riser,
you're a full-time job. You're a wildlife biologist, correct?
right? Yep,
Wow.
yep. With the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and that's a good story we can get into too about how I got connected with Phil. Was kind of had to do with that. But I'll tell you about these risers.
Hmm.
These are cat risers that are raw. Nothing. Phil didn't do anything to them. So I take them to I'm lucky to have an acquaintance that's a machinist with a mill that knows what he's doing and can get those, get this limb pad, all this, get this. These things have to be perfect, that's what makes the bow. So he gets that done. And then I have to go to town sanding them smooth. And I probably sand them more than I need to because the powder coater, they do a quick sandblast, but there's quite a bit of work because there's one, two, three, six holes that I need to drill and tap, on the riser. So there's just a lot of stuff. So I'm not going to be able to answer the number of hours very well, but it is a lot of work. And then some of it's passive when I drop, like the risers I'm waiting for now. I got about 30 risers at the powder coater. Once I get those back, hopefully in a couple weeks I can offer these for sale. Um, and I gotta show this too. I just picked up. They're gonna come with a case.
I love it.
With a,
That's awesome.
I figured go big or go home, and hopefully people want these. But it's gonna be
Yeah.
an entire package. But it's quite a bit of work. And these are a lot of work. These the extruded aluminum machine risers, but
So
so that isn't really
when do you anticipate these bows being available for public consumption?
within a couple weeks probably. It's just
Okay.
a matter of I got all the limbs, I've got the logos, so I just need to paint about 8 sets of limbs with logos, which I can do in a weekend. Um, and then the powder coater, the way that works, he might call me tomorrow and say they're done. I just never know. I mean, he's working. He does wheels for people. He does parts for municipalities on road signs. It's unbelievable all the stuff that gets powder coated because it's so durable. And so possibly in a couple weeks, because I'm assembling everything. It's just a matter of getting the limbs painted and the risers back from powder coat, really. So yeah, hopefully a couple weeks.
So let me ask you this question. Powder coating, because to me, I'm intrigued by it because I'm thinking of investing in it because I'm getting
Oh,
more and more aluminum risers, magnesium
oh,
risers, bare stuff coming
yeah,
in. And I do paint all my
yeah,
risers. I have for the last 30, 40 years. And it's been pretty durable, but if you're tough on them, you know, like I
yeah.
never like what I've done now recently, if I've painted them and then hit them up with the clear coat, my normal clear coat, and it makes it a little more durable.
Sure,
Now,
yeah.
are you offering different colors, or are you just going to stick with black and blue? Or
I will. I can get different colors to start. I kind of, an homage to Phil. I mean, his hunting risers were black, his target risers were blue. So I wanted to kind of just start with that to kind of
Yep.
establish, a look for this version. But in the future, depending on what happens, colors are for sure an option. And I can tell you this, Rich, I've painted some magnesium risers too, and there's nothing compared to powder coat. I
Oh
mean, it's
no,
not even
it's
close.
awesome. Yeah.
And I hunted with it. I throw it around. I've had it in the shop using it as kind of a sample for various things. And it's like brand new. There's not even scratches. And I'm having him powder coat some bare magnesium risers, and I've had him do one. And it's the only problem is magnesium's kind of soft, so you have to be real careful with the blossoms when if you sandblast that, you get pitting and stuff. So, but I don't know. I mean, I can tell you this: it looks like this guy's got a good business going. He's got lots of business, but he's got high volume, and that's where with the price, it's really reasonable to get these done versus what I would have to do to get an oven.
Yeah, I've got connections around here that do that, and I haven't committed to it yet, but I talked to them. I'm like, okay, well, there's bead blasting, there's sand blasting. Bead blasting, they're using walnut shells, which is a little softer on the metal. It's not such a brutal attack like sandblasting.
Yeah.
And I used to do it years ago when I worked for my father in the summers. I would sandblast helicopter parts.
Okay.
Yeah. That was my job in the summers. So
I used to sandblast cars. When I was younger, I had an International Scout that I restored, and I did a lot of sandblasting. Just a bucket, in the a tube.
Go to town.
But
now, are you still making your Misaki Deer Slayer bow?
I am, but I didn't take any orders this year. I had to turn down orders
just to concentrate on this. I get it. Yeah,
I wanted to get this done, get this out. I wanted it to be in stock bow that's available for purchase. When they're out there, and so I can just ship them. And but I'll get back to that. There's so many things I want to do for bow building, but hopefully this winter get back to Misaki Deer Slayer. I make a 52-inch that I really like. And then I was toying with making some kind of Grumley type copies, bush bow, deer slayer type things. And that was really fun. And I got a guy out there shooting one of them right now. He's been shooting it. I don't know for sure how much, but quite a bit, and it's holding together. So I am backing them with 20 thousandths glass. But other than that, it's made just like a Grumley as far as the hickory, yew, and then Osage orange face. So glass on the back.
Yeah, I would be interested in one of those for sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking here at the history. The last time you and I had a podcast together was episode 20. We're on 126 now.
Yeah, that's a lot of water under there. Huh?
Hey, brother, I'm two months in, and I'm on video now, so this is great. And by the way, for those people, this is iced tea. Iced tea. Not like it was in the old days.
Yeah, I'm not drinking anything, so hopefully I don't get parched. But
yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
So, if you were to market this bow, what would be the price point?
I've told a couple people, as best as I can tell, it'd have to be about $450 for the riser and about $450 for the limbs.
That's totally reasonable. I was thinking $1,200 for the whole bow.
Well, I want it to be somewhat affordable so people can buy them. I want to sell some.
Sure.
At the same time, I don't do a good job factoring in my labor and the cost, but just this metal part, to have a machinist turn it, it takes them like 3/4 of an hour to turn it, tap it, all that kind of stuff. So,
and whatever he gets paid per hour,
Yeah, so I'm only paying a couple bucks to get it powder coated, which is great, but I think it's about $35. So like you add up all the parts and the machine work and the milling, and there's a lot into it. And these machined ones, because I'm pretty sure this left-handed one's going to be for sale. but I mean, these would have to be
How do
something
you,
a couple $100 from
how,
that, you
how do you
know.
like that, folks? He knows I'm a lefty, and he throws it right up on the
Yeah.
camera.
Well, and I made a left-handed one because, you know, I don't have any left-handed ones, Rich. I mean, these castings are all right-handed. I have uh, some used ones, you know, that have, so I do have a left-handed used hunting length
Right.
riser. And I'm kind of looking at that too, you know, reconditioning and restoration of risers. You know, I have the original jigs for the holes and all that kind of stuff, and I've got a good powder coater too. So that's something, you know, if people have old risers, you know, that I can kind of recondition and make them look like new thing. That's down the road, but I mean, that's just, you know, something I'm thinking about, those kind of things, because, um, you know, if these do sell and people want them, then I'm gonna have to look at, you know, do I have more made? Do I, you know, get a machine? You know, those types of things. And the only way I can offer a left-handed one right now is with a heck of a lot of work. But
Yeah. Well, I'd be
I'm
happy
not
with a.
going.
I would be happy with a blue one.
Oh yeah, that blue is
35
one. What
pounds
he
blue.
these machine ones, he would anodize them.
Oh,
Um, and I'm not having much luck finding an anodizer. You know, I know some people do that in a bucket too, but most of the anodizers are doing commercial scale stuff for window trim, car trim, you know, whatever it
right.
is.
What about dipping?
Well, so that's a good question. So I'm going to get these Cerakoted. There is a local Cerakoter that I'm going to try out. I like that on the guns. And I actually have 4 sets of limbs that should have been back yesterday that I got hydro dipped. Um, and so I wish I could show you, but they're still in. I guess they're going to show up tomorrow. But um, you know, Phil always camoed everything. His in the old videos, he's got or pictures. You know, like everybody did, right? Everything's camouflage. So I wanted to go with the clear glass. So some of this first run of limbs, you know,
I
has
like
clear
that. Yeah.
glass. There's some that are black that kind of look like what he originally made. Um, but then I wanted a camo, and I do a spray camo too that I put a clear coat over. But I got connected with this hydro dipper in Wisconsin, and the price is pretty reasonable. And I picked out this Predator camo.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's
Oh, I am. I
similar.
am.
Okay, they didn't have ASAT as an option. I always like that, but that Predator looks pretty nice. So I got 4 limbs. We'll see how that looks. And
Well, when you get
um,
those, send me pictures because I'm all about
oh yeah,
promoting this project. This is awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been told from the person that uses them that they've had pretty good success. So I always remember, well, it seemed like I had heard that with recurve limbs, you know, the way, and if you've seen it where at hydro dip, they put that film on a big vat of water
Right.
and then you just dunk it in. And I'd always kind of heard that with the shape of a recurve limb, sometimes it doesn't always turn out that nice, you know, because it's a weird shape, right? But so we'll see how they look.
Yeah. I mean, I've hydro, like cap, cap dipping arrows.
Oh yeah.
I've hydro dipped a few of my own, and they've come out pretty
Oh
cool,
really?
like psychedelic. I just
Okay.
take a bucket
Yeah.
of water, get about 9, 10 inches of water in there, and I'm
Yeah.
throwing spray paint in there, like whatever.
Okay.
Get the arrow and pull it out, and it just sticks. It's like, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
But
It's a
yeah,
pretty neat thing. And
I
I
use
never really got
aluminum.
into
I
it,
did it
but
with aluminum arrows. I haven't experimented with woods, of course, for obvious
okay.
reasons. Um,
Yeah.
but I like screwing around all the time in the shop. I'm every day,
Oh,
I work full time, but then if I know I can do something in 10 minutes on this claim I'm working on, guess what? I got 30 minutes in the shop. So
sure. Yeah.
I just can't retire fast enough. And that's happening next year. So that'll be fun. We actually probably will get to physically meet each other because I plan on traveling to Michigan. Um,
Yeah, and you know, I've actually skipped out on Kalamazoo multiple times, but I only live 40 minutes from there. I'm
that's
in
great.
Battle Creek,
Yeah.
Michigan. There's not really much of an excuse for not going, but sometimes I just choose to get stuff done on bows or around the house instead of
Right.
going to being tempted to buy a bow, frankly,
Right. That's always the premise. I mean, I went to Baltimore of all places, so I'm flying back and forth. Nobody's going to buy bows and bring them on the plane. So
no,
I sent an empty box to my buddy up in Maryland, Jim Rain Man, as he's known on some of the sites, Jim Rain
yeah,
Jr., and he's shipping them back to me. And I gave him a prepaid label in there. So great. So there's no place I cannot go without buying something.
yeah,
It's an illness, by the way. It's a mental illness. And at the end of this podcast, and at the other podcasts, I talk about mental illness. I have mental illness about bows.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It is a
Don, how were you introduced to Phil Grable?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good story because it's a long story and it goes
That's
back
fine.
to 2012 or so. Before I had worked down in Florida, I became acquainted with Ernie Root's son,
Mm-hmm.
who was in Michigan, and I got to learn a lot about the Golden Eagle bows. And that, again, that's something. Going back in time in 2012, I knew what a Golden Eagle bow was. I always thought the Golden Eagle recurves were the same as the Golden Eagle compounds, and it is not. They have nothing to do with each other. Golden Eagle compounds is a company. The Golden Eagle is a model name of bows that Root and then Shakespeare made. But anyways, I got to know him, so I learned about the Golden Eagle and more about background information from the Ernie Root perspective. And I used to I knew, like, in the picture, there's Phil Grable when they shoot the first 300 score. It's Phil Grable and Ernie Root standing there with Jugger Gervais. And I just didn't really know anything about Phil. I didn't know anyone that knew him. Wasn't aware of him. But I'd heard, Phil was the machinist, the riser guy.
Okay.
Ernie was the maker who made the limbs and, finished the package off and that kind of deal. So, but I always had in my head, so for the last 12, 13 years, I'm thinking about this Phil Grable guy and who is he? And then occasionally I remember seeing, I don't know if I think it's one of those Frank Addington Jr. interviews. And there's a picture with that George Gardner fella. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole bunch of bow hunters, like Ted Nugent, George Gardner, Phil Grable. I'm like, there's that Phil Grable name, I guess he was a bow hunter because Ernie Root wasn't really a bow hunter. He was a target shooter and a bow maker. Anyways, just always in the back of my mind for years. And I guess it didn't really take any momentum until a few years ago. I don't even know, Rich, maybe 20, let's just say 5 years ago. I think you had Tom Jenkins of Fred Bear Day on here before. Is that correct or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I've gotten to know Tom a little bit over the years, and he's good friends with Ron LeClaire.
Oh, wow.
And, at one point with Tom, and he was trying to get a 30-pound bow over to Ron, who just had shoulder surgery. And I, my wife was with me, and she drives by his house all the time. I never really met Ron LeClaire or talked to him.
He's an awesome man.
She drives by his house.
He was one of a kind. He was one of a kind.
Yeah. Well, so she says, I'll drop the bow off. So she drops the bow off, ends up talking to Ron for a couple hours. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck? I've never really talked to, and I'm asking questions about hanging about with Ron LeClaire for a couple hours. And this is after his wife had passed away. But anyway, so I think Tom must, I don't remember all the details, but bottom line is at Kalamazoo, Ron LeClaire was sitting down at a shrew booth. And Tom Jenkins introduced me, and there was a chair sitting there. So I got to sit with Ron for 20 or 30 minutes, and he told stories. I asked him questions, and I don't even know how the Golden Eagle came up, but it came up, and he said Phil made him a handmade Golden Eagle, because the very first ones, going back several years before they came out in 66, 67, they were just the same as machined, hand cut, all kinds of crazy looking shapes. I think each one was different, but Phil had made one for Ron LeClaire to shoot because Ron was a target shooter at that time, or he shot target.
Yeah.
And do you know Phil Grable? Is he still around? Yeah, he's still around, but he doesn't answer his phone. He said, he said, I call him
I
up.
don't answer my phone.
Doesn't usually. Yeah. So, and I'm trying to think. Like, I think Ron gave me his phone number, and I might have tried calling him, and I can't remember for sure. But that kind of didn't lead anywhere, other than I knew Phil Grable was still alive and around, and in the back of my head, because this history, Rich, you got to talk to people while they're here, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
wait 5 years. I used to always want to Owen Jeffrey, and I never did, and he's passed away, and I used to kind of, I'll just drive to South Carolina. I never did. And bottom line, what happened, and I can thank Fred Trost, who you've probably never heard of, but in Michigan, we have our local PBS hunting fishing shows. I don't know if they have it in every state, the public broadcasting kind of hunting and fishing shows. And here in Michigan in the 80s and 90s, it was Fred Trost with Michigan Out of Doors, and then later Practical Sportsman. So his son has been putting all these videos up on YouTube. So I can watch episodes that I watched when I was 10 years old.
Awesome.
And it's pretty neat. And there was one, I remember watching this episode when it was new, and the host, Fred, is shooting a recurve. And as a 10-year-old, I didn't know anything. And then a few years later, I never really knew what bow he was shooting, but he was shooting a Phil Grable bow. And as I started watching these episodes, shoot, Phil's in there all the time. He's talking about his bows, he's bow hunting with them. And there was a common thread. A guy, I mean, it's on YouTube, so I know sometimes we mention about name dropping and stuff, but he's on the YouTube video. So, I mean, his good hunting buddy was Dave Borgeson, who was the assistant fisheries division chief of the Michigan DNR. And I thought, my gosh, that name sounds familiar. And as it turned out, his son has the same name and was the assistant chief of the fisheries division of the Michigan DNR. So in my time working for the DNR, I had just seen his name in emails or something. And I thought, man, I got to figure out where this guy is. Maybe he can introduce me to Phil. And it ended up he retired, but I found some email address and sent him an email. And the next thing I know, Phil's significant other is emailing me and saying, yeah, Phil would love to have some, you come over and visit. And that's kind of how it started, and visited with him. And then, the story with Kevin, I didn't know anything about, I'd never met Kevin before. I did meet Kevin several years ago, but just briefly at Kalamazoo.
It's funny. Stop you about that. Kevin Bishop and I have been corresponding with each other for over 30 years. I finally met him for the first time last year.
Yeah. I never really I knew who he was, I guess. John Cabisa had introduced me at Kalamazoo before. These are all famous collector names, right? So, we're
famous in our own minds, brother.
Yeah. Well, famous amongst collectors, right? Famous amongst 10 or 12 people, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or maybe 100 or 120. I don't know. So one thing led to another, and it was kind of funny because Phil's showing me all his bows the first time I visited him, and showing me all this stuff, and I thought, cool, and then I went home and I started thinking, like, does he, I wonder does he still have stuff to make bows? I don't have one of his bows, and I started thinking, like, I know he was still making them. I mean, he's selling them, right? Like, I didn't want to try to buy his collection necessarily, because I was just, cool meeting him and talking to him. But I thought, well, I'll ask if he has any new old stock. Like, does he have any leftover risers, just to buy one of his last bows that he made. And so I was kind of contacting his significant other through emails. And she says, no, somebody asked about that a few years ago, and, he's kind of sold out of his new bows. And then she said, and by the way, he sold his collection.
To Kevin Bishop.
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't know it was Kevin. And so that spurred me to think, like, okay, if he's decided to part with some of his stuff, as people do as they get older, is there an opportunity to make his, bow making stuff, make his bows? And so the wheels got turning, and I visited him about that kind of stuff. And, it turned out he had some castings, he had the jigs and fixtures, that kind of stuff. And so I acquired that. And, to me, having that stuff, and the idea of making stuff wasn't right unless, I'd feel like, right, theoretically, you have a piece of aluminum, I can make it and sell it, right? Like, I mean, how many custom bow makers are Brackenberry copies, right? There's like
Oh
4
my
custom
God. Yeah.
Brackenberry bows.
Well, because a lot of these people were apprentices to these companies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and my bows obviously are very reminiscent of Bear bows because I'm making bows, that I like.
But I will say, Don, your Misaki Deer Slayer is a hybrid, in my opinion, of a Kodiak and a Kodiak Special.
Yeah. No, it's not a copy of a bow. It's just
not
the
a
style.
copy of anything. It's just a hybrid.
No, but the styling is, I can admit it, it's definitely influenced by the bows I love, right?
Oh, why do I have? Why do I have 4 of them?
Yeah. So I met with Phil and Connie and told them what I was thinking. I wanted to call it the Phil Grable Signature SST. I don't know if anyone wants to buy these or not, and but I think it'd be really neat. I mean, he'd stop making them, and I'd like permission to use. He had some hunting pictures. Call it the Phil Grable Signature SST, and he granted me permission. They thought it was really cool. They were pretty excited about it, and to me too, it's really, whether anybody buys any bows or not, this is fun. It's history. Mm-hmm. Phil Grable, you said, he's I think he's accomplished quite a bit in his archery career, but he's not that well known. He's a heck of a hunter, heck of a shot, and the thing that I would say is just a lifelong. It's clear talking to him, and this, you don't always see this, right? Like, some people make bows for a few years, they're gone, or they hunt for a few years, they're gone. Phil fully loves archery to this day, lives and breathes it, and has, since he was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I've been into archery since 1973, and maybe earlier than that. And it's not going away anytime soon. I'm obsessed with it. I'm up with it. I want a lefty Phil Grable bow, but I want you and him to sign it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got some. I asked him to sign some stuff, so that's definitely possible. I plan on. I haven't visited him probably since maybe March or April. Mm-hmm. And I've been concentrating on getting these out. And my thought has been, once I get the full product, I want to go over there with, the full product in the case to show him. And, that'd be a good opportunity to do that. Because, anytime somebody's that up in years, you don't always have a tomorrow kind of thing.
Right, and exactly. One day at a time. So now, has he seen your prototype at all?
He's seen this. He's seen the picture of the deer I shot. He's seen the limbs I made, the first experimental set. And no, he has not seen, as far as the machined ones. I do want to show it to him. I'm a little nervous, because I'm showing it to the master kind of thing. But, I plan to show those to him, when I go visit him.
So again. What was his opinion of what you did show him?
He thought it was pretty cool. I asked him about the finish, and he's not, I guess we'll just say he's not super talkative, at this point. So okay. I mean, well, I guess what I mean is just, it looks cool. He's not jumping through the roof over, he's been there, done that. He's marketed this bow with 4 companies, right? You know what I mean? He made these bows for 40 years. He thinks it's neat, that they're being made again. I asked him about that crinkle finish because a lot of his were that crinkle, that 70s,
Oh,
80s finish.
yeah, and I still do that.
You do? Okay. And I think it looks kind of neat in some ways, but I asked him about that, and he likes this better, this kind of texture. Because I was like, do you like that crinkle finish? And he's just kind of like, it was, I think it was popular at the time, right?
It
And they
was,
did,
it was, and
they,
I went nuts back in the '80s. I went nuts buying crinkle finish spray cans to refinish
yeah.
bare takedown risers
Okay.
because everybody wanted
Yeah.
it. Because that was big in the '80s.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had some of these risers powder coated in it, and they haven't. Some have turned out nicer than others. I don't know exactly how it goes on, but
Yeah.
um, the outcome is variable, I guess. And there's a lot to it. I mean, there's something called outgassing.
Okay.
So with these castings, sometimes there's just some kind of contamination in the aluminum or something, and it'll bubble. Like this one's not bubbling, but occasionally some of the risers I've had powder coated, they'll have like a bubble in the finish, and it's like apparently there's nothing you can do except they pre-bake the riser to kind of cook out the gas.
I wonder if you could seal the riser first. Once it's ready to go, seal it first with a clear, and then go over it with the powder coat.
And I guess they've chased it. I mean, this is something the industry has chased, and the best remedy is because it's activated by the heat. So they pre-bake it. They just put it in for 450 degrees, get that gas out. There is a primer sealer that can help, seal that in. And then, by the time you put the top coat on, hopefully you're good. But no, I think Phil's thinks it's pretty neat. At the same time, I think, the last time he made bows in the late 90s, I don't think they were very popular. So I think there's some kind of skepticism, like, I don't know if people want to buy those, Don. Like that's neat that you want to make Phil's bows, and that's neat you want to make these, but at the last time he kind of made these, I think they weren't necessarily that popular, I guess.
Well, I mean, look at Bear Archery. They're still making the 59 Kodiak. All right, they're still making. Exactly. They're remaking stuff. They're rehashing the bow that was made that put them on the map. So,
right. And I think there's era things. You know what I mean? Like his last, as far as I know, the last launch he kind of did was 1998. And then I assume after that, he just kind of slowly sold whatever he had in stock. Because I do have some of those last limbs that are unfinished that I finished off a few. They have a lot of cracks in the glass, so I'm not sure if I'll ever sell those or not. I mean, they're, it's the kind of stuff that, like I'm not worried about them breaking or anything, but how do you sell limbs with cracks?
So let me ask you a question about the limbs. Will they be fast flight compatible, or are you just going strictly B55?
Oh yeah, fast flight. Yep. Yeah, they should be fine with fast flight. Fast flight, that's a rabbit hole we could go down forever. But
let's do it.
I mean, they were using Kevlar in the 70s, and I've talked to different people. A lot of people say like the angle, the string groove, has a lot to do with it. If it's straight across there versus angled. And, right. Certainly, obviously, materials that are stronger, like those phenolics and G10, and fiberglass is really strong. You can put it in a fire, and it's still there. I mean, the epoxy will sometimes burn off, but those strands of fiberglass are not things that come apart easily.
Well, I've burned bows in fire pits, and dug it up the following year, and there's those strands of fiberglass.
Yeah, it looks like the resin kind of burns off. I've thrown just some in fire before. I've never burned a bow.
I burned a lot of bows. Sometimes customers bows. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But no, I do want to say, I mean, it's a huge honor that Phil's letting me do this. He gave me permission. He gave me his blessing.
Yeah.
Letting me use his hunting photos, his name. I think he thinks it's pretty cool. Like
His
probably
last
kind
tour.
of also like you might think I'm kooky for wanting to do this too. You know what I mean? And I don't know, but
You'll have to show him the
I
podcast.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know how much TV he watches, but I had shared. I don't think he knew those YouTube videos were out that he was on.
He probably doesn't even
I
have
think he watched
access
some.
to a computer. I don't know.
Well, his wife does, and but yeah, he definitely doesn't use a computer. Um, that's a young man's thing, right, or a young
Well,
person. But
younger person. I have two guys that I need to get on the podcast. One guy's in his 90s, one guy's in his 80s. Marv Klink and the Bob
yeah.
Savage, who built the Savage Deathmaster recurve.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And well, I called Bob, and it was like, whoa, it was tough getting through that conversation. So I got to do it sooner than later. So
Yeah.
I know I can get Marv. I got Marv's phone number, so I got to get him on here. Uh, it's crazy. Since I started this podcast, it's gone through the roof.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I've listened to different podcasts. Now there's quite a few.
There's a
But I
million of
had
them.
liked, I think you were probably on it, but the one I liked the best, um, no, I can't think of it. It's a guy that quit. He's involved in Compton. And I don't know if it's Stickbow Chronicles or
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my buddy, Mark. Mark Hoaxema.
no, no, it's not. Okay, I've been on that one. I like that podcast too, but it was before Mark started. There was,
Oh, the
I
push.
don't know.
There's the push. There's Stickbow Chronicle. There's Stickbow Country. There's oh God. There's a million of them.
I guess I hate to look at my phone on a podcast, but I think you were on his podcast. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I've been on a few. I'll tell you in a minute because I got it right here.
he stopped about 3 years ago, and I know he's a Compton board member, and he's out of Idaho.
Oh,
Um, and maybe you haven't been on that one, but anyways, I really enjoyed that one, so
all
I'm
right.
glad you
The
and
one I have not been on is Stick Boys.
no,
I've been
okay,
on Stickbow Country. I've been on the push, and I've been on the dude who stopped doing. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Uh, oh God, I forgot what the name was called. Yeah, but he stopped doing a podcast. I was his very last episode.
yes, yeah, I love that podcast. I listen to that all the time,
That was a
and so
fun
I'm
one.
glad
Yeah,
that
man.
you and Mark and other people are
His
picking
name was
up.
Rob Patuto.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah. He
Yep, I've never
retired to
met.
spend, he stopped it so he could spend more time with his wife, which is the smartest thing he ever
Yeah.
did.
Well, if
I
he
know.
listens to podcasts, his podcast, and maybe I should just re-listen to old ones. It was just an
Oh,
enjoy. I listened to them the whole time building bows or working on stuff. I got my
no.
headphones on. So
Well, since I
it's
started doing this on YouTube, I stopped drinking. So, so it's like,
yeah.
okay, this is fun. I'm having a blast, and I just love talking to people because we have so much to talk about. I'm not done with you. You got time?
Oh yeah, I got time, and I keep trying to think of things that I want to.
No. Well,
I just
I'm going to ask you a question here. I want you to tell me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want you to tell the story of you killing the deer with the Phil Grable bow.
Okay, that's a good story. Um, as far as that, I mean, it was one of the best hunts in my life, I guess. I have a good friend, Carl, who I hunt with up north, and he has several of my bows as well. And it's up by Lake Michigan, up in northern Michigan. It's a really, really fortunate that I'm able to have permission to hunt up there on because I mainly hunt public land, but this is some good private land. And how do I tell this? I was up there camping for a couple days. So I just set up my wall tent camp, and this is was Carl's property and then his neighbors. And I don't want to. I guess I shouldn't name drop too much.
No,
But anyways, up north,
yeah.
yeah. And I'm just trying to set it up. But the best thing I could figure out was to camp in a wall tent, and the property owners gave me permission, which I'm really appreciative of. One year trying to hunt up there, I tried to, you know, rent a cabin, and that was okay, but that cabin's not available. My family has some small cabins, but they're an hour and a half away. That's not very good to get up, in a tree at 5 a.m., right? Um, so basically, this property, it's some cedar swamp stuff with a creek. There's these old Lake Michigan shorelines. So it's just a fantastic, fun place to hunt. And it's got a lot of nice older age bucks and just a lot of deer. And up there, aren't big bucks. I mean, the buck I shot's a 3.5-year-old 7 point. And, these are not going to make any book or anything like that. But I just, I got in a magical situation where I moved trees a couple times, but basically, I guess I'd call it a rut funnel between bedding areas and feeding areas and bedding areas, and just had a couple days of. It's actually the deer I shot was the third deer that I had under 15 yards. And the first two I was not able to. The first one stopped uphill of me. They're chasing does, they're running in the cedar swamp, they're running out, just great. You know what it's like, the greatest rut hunt you can imagine, or pre-rut, I guess, because it's November 4th, 5th kind of area. The first one, I'm using a saddle right now, and the first was down the hill towards me, and I don't remember if that saw me move, but it stops. No, he stopped. He stopped at like 7 yards, quartering towards me. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I should do something. The problem is he's at a level with me, like eye level. And so I barely start to move, and then he takes off. And I'm thinking, that was a nice 3-year-old buck. I would have liked to have shot him. Maybe I should have done that a little differently, or let him walk by, And I sure hope I get another chance, because sometimes, a lot of seasons I don't even get one chance at a buck like that. I'm not shooting 4, 5, 6-year-old bucks by any means. But so that was in the morning. That evening, I kind of moved to another tree because I'm watching all these other deer that are out of range, move by this tree. And there's this, I call him a spiral horn buck. I had a lot of trail camera photos of him, and I saw him at the end. By the time I was done hunting him for a few days, I saw him like 5 times in daylight, and kind of was wondering why I didn't try to shoot him. But I'm not really at the level of holding out for 5-year-old bucks yet, but I moved into position where he was going through, and bucks up there have to have 3 points on a side. Mm-hmm. And I'm primarily hunting for age, and I'd love to shoot a great big buck that scores a lot, but I'm looking at age primarily, and the goal on that property is 3.5 or older at least, and preferably older. So I'm trying to age them when I see them, all that kind of stuff. And I had a pretty nice 5-point was come by at like 2 yards below me, and I can't really do anything. And in the low light of the evening, I'm trying to figure out, is this, because I can see he's a 4-year-old buck all the way, and I'm looking for that third point. He had a little crab claw at the end of his beam, and I had pictures of him too. I don't want to make it sound like I'm some trail camera hunter. I just use them off and on, but this past season had quite a few pictures of different deer. And so by the time I figured out he had 3 points and I knew what deer he was, I started to draw, and he saw me draw something. Man, I'm screwing up all over, and he was at 12 yards quartering away, and I never even got to shoot him. And that's kind of like, I'm in the game, but how many times am I going to get to screw up, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good storyteller or how to tell these things. It's hard to get in the hunt, but
no, you're good.
I'm in a situation where I'm invigorated. This is the rut. I'm sleeping in a tent, waking up early, no thoughts of sleeping in or anything. I just need to get in the woods. I don't need to overthink it. Buck chasing does all over. That night when I got out of my tree, I almost got run over by maybe it was that spiral horn, but some like 6-year-old buck chasing a doe ran by me. And this whole time I haven't been winded. You know, those two deer, that first one spooked a little more, but the second one didn't really know what I was. And none of those deer, I don't know if it's the thermals or what, you know, with me off the lake shore and being on this slope of a old shoreline, but I had it made. You know, I'm getting in and out of there without spooking deer. So
I love it. That's
the
why we
next
hunt.
morning,
That's why we hunt, brother.
oh geez. And the next morning I decided to hunt on the ground because it was just a blasting wind, which you get sometimes by the Great Lakes shoreline. And so it was kind of, I just told you I was invigorated. I don't want to say I took the morning off, but it was kind of more like, with this crazy wind, I don't really want to go into that spot, but you know, I'll try a little bit different spot and hunt off the ground and kind of sneak in and see what happens. And nothing really happens. So I was kind of like building up for that evening. And so that evening I went to the same spot where I'd almost shot the other deer, the previous deer, this 5-point, and trying to think how that all happened now. It was basically just, it was kind of turning into like clockwork, which I don't usually get because I mainly hunt public land, but sun's going down, you know, for the evening hunts at least. And I'm kind of just waiting for a buck to go to the does in the bedding area in the cedar swamp. And then they're going to come out and those does are going to head to the feeding areas upslope. And that's kind of what was happening every hunt. And so this time, you know, I see a couple does, they cross the creek, waiting for the buck. There he is. He's there. You know, yeah. And I thought it was the same buck that I drew on the night before. And so they came and the buck's kind of chasing the does and it just worked out great. So with that saddle, I kind of like it because I kind of struggled at first, and I just told you I spooked a couple deer more or less, and I don't know that was because of the saddle, but there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages and getting used to it. You know, when you've been hunting, I've been hunting out of a lone wolf hang-on stand from age 16 to I guess 35 or something. So for about 20 years hunting the same way, have that down, never get spotted, and you know, picking the trees. And with a saddle, it's just a little different. And being a giant guy like I am, I feel like when I first started hunting, I was getting picked out of the saddle a lot. Like I'm just some blob in a tree and I wasn't really doing it right, you know, hanging off the side of a tree. And now I think I'm getting it down a little more. So, but you got to make a move too. And it's, you know, these deer ran up behind me, you know, so I've got this big beech tree in front of me and they run up behind me and I'm kind of thinking for a second, I thought it was a deer I could shoot as a 3-year-old. I thought it was the deer I wasn't able to shoot the night before. And I just kind of swung, you know, back in the saddle, shot him, and actually recovered him the next day because it started downpouring. And so that was, you know, if you see the picture, it's kind of, he's pretty roughed up looking. But it was a sleepless night, but it was an exciting experience, you know, at the time.
Any problems with coyotes? Coyotes get in there?
Yeah, I didn't really want to say anything because it's not an exciting thing, but half that deer got eaten by a coyote. I don't know if you could tell or not. I'm trying to to get good, you know.
The pictures are fine, but I'm very familiar with hunting, Wisconsin, Illinois. Oh my God, the coyotes are the piranhas of the woods.
Well, and the crazy thing is, Rich, you know, I can't say that I've shot a ton of deer, but I've shot deer over the years, and I've often, even with double lung shots, if it was cold and I was kind of unsure, I've never hesitated to let stuff sit overnight, and I've never had a problem, ever. And then with this deer, they ate like half of, you know, I mean, I couldn't believe it.
So can you eat whatever's left? Or no?
I wasn't going to. I mean, they urinated on the whole carcass.
Oh, great.
You know, it was.
Yeah, no.
It was like I'm.
Yeah, it's like a biker rally. You don't want to.
Yeah. So that's something I'm not. You know, it's one of those things that was extremely disappointing to me that happened, and it kind of, you know. So I went from kind of a high to like a low, and then now kind of a high again. I mean, the hunt
Hey,
worked
but you
out,
got your deer. You got your deer.
all that kind of stuff, and I hated losing the meat. But anyways, it's just one of those weird things, and it was a real big eye opener because yeah, I've just never had deer do that. And I've heard people talk about it all the time, like don't leave a deer. And I always said I'd rather, I want to recover my deer because earlier in my career I liver shot some deer, shooting them while they're walking with a bow kind of thing, and I always I just backed out, and next morning they're just sitting there 100 yards away. They bedded down and died,
Well,
So
in
I never
my
wanted to play deer and lose it.
yeah, in my opinion, you did the ethical thing. Um, Mother Nature is a bitch. I mean, coyotes are coyotes. That's why there's a limited season for them. Kill as many as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have a friend of mine that
Yeah.
is a guide in Mendon, Illinois, and it's nothing for
Mm-hmm.
them to go out in a day and kill 300 coyotes, and they haven't even put a dent in the population.
Yeah. That's a lot of dogs.
That's a lot of dogs, man. But I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, it make a hell of a lot of nice
Yeah.
coats.
Yeah. So after that all settled in and finding getting the deer, I was, it was happy. I mean, but anyways, but now I can just look back on the hunt and that kind of stuff and the memories
Yeah. Yep.
and now I guess I mean, literally as soon as I climbed down and started tracking, it was a torrential downpour. It was, and I've never really had that happen too
Yeah.
often either. But
So I got to ask.
that's a story, I guess.
That's a great story. So we're going to circle back to Phil.
Yeah.
Did he was he involved with Dickie Roberts at any time? Remember Dickie Roberts with the fireball?
I don't know. I found a post on the internet. I don't know if you saw that or
I
not.
did. That's where I'm coming from this.
I never asked him about Dickie Roberts, so all I know is what you read there.
Right. They had to know each other because they were all doing the same thing at the same time.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt they would have been. Oh, they would have shot tournaments together, for sure. Being in Michigan, Three Rivers, where Dickie was, is hour and a half from where Phil lived.
I mean, back in the day,
I'm 50 minutes from Phil's house. I had no idea all this. I mean, I know now, but
yeah, he had to know he had to know a lot of tournament shooters because back in the day, I mean, there was guys like him, Jim Pickering, Joe Fry, another shooter. There were so many people, even the female archers were Ann Butts. She shot a golden eagle for the longest time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I, getting to know Phil, I mean, he was a regular member of the Pope and Young Club. He shot several, black bear, mountain lion, caribou, big animals, some nice deer in Michigan. But like most people in Michigan, I think a lot of the deer were, what of the times, right? Kind of like Fred Berry. Sometimes you shoot a nice one, sometimes you shoot a spike, or those kind of things. But I mean, he said I made the remark to his friend that geez, Phil was a hell of a bow hunter. That's a heck of a lot of elk too. He was always hunting elk with Larry Bamford, and he told me, yeah, but he shot more arrows at a target, as much as anybody, kind of thing. So my understanding is that he would have been at all those tournaments, shooting, competing, in the 60s and 70s, whether he was winning them or finishing 50th or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, he was an extremely avid target shooter. I mean, I don't have all the stuff here, but I mean, I'm going to have these stabilizers that he made too. Which I wondered, can you shoot instinctive with a stabilizer? And yes, you can. It's just a weight at the end. I cant the bow a little bit, but he made all these. These are kind of these knurled aluminum cylinders, and they marketed them through Proline. And he's got some of these things, Rich. They're 3 feet long. So if you look at a picture, I don't have anything handy, but a picture of Phil shooting targets, he's got that 3 foot stabilizer. And he used to hunt with a long stabilizer too. like a 2 foot one.
Oh,
And
no.
I think the reason I have to ask him, it's knurled, I think, because he would hold it like this and sling it over his back. So you'll see a lot of times Phil's walking around in pictures and different things, and he's holding his bow by the stabilizer end and flipping it over his back and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. So
That's pretty wild.
I call that going. I call that going full Grable, Rich.
Yep. Full Grable.
Get and he hunted with sights too. He had the sights and the sight windows. So
He was a maverick, man. He was a maverick of his time.
Yeah. Oh, in the 60s, because the whole story,
It
the
started at
gold
65.
needle.
65, 66,
Well,
from what I've read.
and I think it's a little. Yeah, I think when he was actually making his first bows, I think we're talking a little bit before that, and he started making sights, those aluminum risers, and what he was doing, according to Phil, is he was looking for somebody to make the bows.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly landed on Ernie, but they partnered. His very early prototypes have root limbs. So even the ones that are a different design, what actually was marketed, they still have root limbs. So he partnered up with Ernie, and that was whatever you call lightning in a bottle or whatever, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, from what I found online was in 65, 66, Ernie Root began collaborating with Phil. And Root had worked with aluminum laminations, but Grable was experimenting with solid metal risers. Grable been working with aluminum, magnesium, and steel. And I'm reading this verbatim. He needed Ernie Root's knowledge of fiberglass, fiber resin, and wood lamination technology, but he also needed Ernie's manufacturing knowledge. Each needed the expertise of the other, and archery research was set up to handle the development, manufacturing, and marketing of the Golden Eagle. That's where it started.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I mean, basically what's that, and that's where I'm not sure how accurate the steel and magnesium is. I mean, it could be.
This is just what's available
everything
online.
I've seen and talking. Right. He was working with aluminum, and he never. I asked Phil, "Did you ever make limbs?" No. So he needed to partner with a manufacturer, and I think think about how we look at things today, right, Rich? You and I can go in our garage and we can start making laminated bows.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think from Phil's perspective and the mindset he had, right up until he stopped making bows was, this is full on, right? Yeah, especially if you start with the Golden Eagle, he's not going to make them in his garage. I mean, Phil could make limbs if he wanted, right? I mean, obviously a skilled craftsman, but I think in his mind, once you start with a big company, that's what you think of, right? The scale of, large production manufacturing.
Yeah, he was more of
and it turned out it was.
He was more of an engineer than he was a buyer.
Absolutely. Bow designer. It's just a neat story. I wish I, would have met him years ago. Would be pretty neat to learn more about.
Well, the fact that you met him recently is even better. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just keep thinking about picture yourself, because I don't know the exact year, but I have a mind to think, putting two and two together, that it's probably the early 60s when he started making some of these metal riser bows. Could you imagine that? I know they made like those Grimes and those goofy metal bows, but like the kind of idea he had to use these aluminum machine handles.
Do you remember a bow made in the 60s called the Tarantula?
No,
it was
I don't know.
It was a shoot-through riser. Okay, it was like the
No,
letter H.
Okay,
I think it was a compound.
yeah,
but it was all aluminum. It was weird.
Yeah,
didn't do well in the market.
Yeah,
Weighed 500
no, I think
pounds.
I've seen that in Yeah. Well, there was like a rigid compound that had aluminum limbs and an aluminum riser. I think it was all aluminum.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. So what else can we talk about this bow?
I don't know. There's probably more. I mean, I guess, for me, I think in my head, and I've talked to Kevin about this a little bit too, like, why would anyone buy one? And, it's not an ILF. It's not cut an inch past center. I'm not planning on, machining out triangles and all that kind of stuff out of the riser. But to me, it's just the grip is cool. I love that. The accuracy. And it's a bow just like any bow, right? Why shoot a 65 Kodiak? Why shoot a Grumley? Why shoot a longbow? It's a bow of its an era. It's 1970 technology, and it's cool. It's fun.
Well, my thought on this is, Don, is okay. So I'm going to go back and talk about one of my supporters, which is Salk Trail Archery. We've reintroduced a longbow.
Yeah.
It's a 70-inch longbow. Dude, it's tearing up the target market.
Oh, okay.
So he's bringing it back to what used to be the norm on targets. Forget hunting. Well, yeah, you can kill an animal with a 70-inch bow. A little tough out of his tree stand, but I mean, there's something here to be had. I mean, for me, if I was to shoot your bow, it would be for 3D competition. And I'm not a competitor, but I want to be.
Yeah.
There's a delay going on. I can hear myself 7 seconds later.
Oh.
But, I think it's a great concept. I think you're going to do well with this. Just whatever you have that you make advances on, send me pictures and I will promote it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess this isn't a real big deal and that interesting, but I want to say this too. I mean, Phil always shot off the rest, like a NAP center rest or before, like a Hoyt. But I like to shoot off the shelf. So, what I have there is, a strike plate that I made out of AP.
Right.
Yep. And then I'm gonna have those available, with just something you can use for that. I'm gonna make something better for the shelf because it's a flat shelf. I just used leather for this, and it shot great off the shelf, Rich. So that is an option too. I mean, certainly it's ready for a burger button and a Hoyt rest or a center rest or what. I've got all that stuff too as options, but these can be shot off the shelf as well. And that's how I hunted with it last year. Because years ago I used the NAP flipper rest on a Bear magnesium takedown, and it was cool and everything. But I like shooting off the shelf. I just never really messed with rests too much.
Now, do you shoot 3 fingers under or split?
No, so I always shot split finger, instinctive. I keep thinking about trying some other stuff, but it works well for the way I shoot, or closer shots and hunting. Phil, 3 fingers under, shot sights, and they called it the Apache draw. But he's got that like a low anchor too. And man, he was a heck of a shot. I mean, you ought to try looking up that Fred Trost videos on YouTube. And I did get permission to pull some of those clips. I want to try to kind of put a video together at some point. And yeah, there's just no doubt, he was really a guy that was a great shot that took it into the hunting field and really, made good work of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been practicing. God, I've been shooting archery since the early 70s, very early 70s. And I tried the 3 fingers under, but I keep going back to split finger. It's almost like a person with a prosthetic leg. They learn to walk with that leg and you can't change them. So that's Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, I had target panic in probably 2007, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of licked it by just really quick. I don't know where I got that idea, but I was faced away from the target and I just spin real quick and shoot. And so I really had issues since then. And so I always kind of think, though, boy, if I start messing with stuff, if I start trying three fingers
Yeah.
under, if I uh, try too many goofy different things, who knows what's going to happen. So the most important thing to me is a solid bow form and a good release, follow through, and
So look
you're
at
usually
Fred Bear.
okay.
Fred Bear was the ultimate snap shooter. Imagine him today with the three
Yeah,
fingers under thing. Oh, I'm going to string walk and I'm going to think about this shit for about 2 minutes.
yeah.
No, he would never get anything
No,
done.
no, that'd be kind of weird. But
Yeah.
I mean, whatever works, right? You know, I do like the idea. I've never shot a recurve with sights at all. I've never even
Yeah.
tried it because I don't, I've never had anything that I could mount on it. But I do think, and I don't really plan on drilling a bunch of holes in these risers like Phil did, but that's what he would do. I don't know if you'd seen any of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Have holes drilled and put the bracket in through. Um, I do think, though, I mean, if that's your game, I wish people would be more comfortable. I don't know, whatever. I mean, whatever it takes to shoot accurately, because if I'm sure Phil could shoot just fine instinctively or using something else, but he was pretty darn good with sights. And I don't. It's so funny, this, and I'm sure you've talked about it. But all these bows you restore, half or more of the people shot sights through the '60s and
Oh
'70s,
my
and
God. Yeah.
now
People were drill happy. Oh my God.
yeah. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't. I'd rather somebody shoot a recurve and use sights than not.
I see stuff. I'm
Whatever it
like,
takes to be accurate.
why is this hole here? Why did they do this? And I think they screwed up and they said, okay, we'll move it on to the next thing. So whatever, I'll fill it and you won't ever see it again. So,
yeah. No, they had a lot of goofy things, goofy kind of sights.
But I was raised on that too, because I was like, when I was a kid growing up, my first bow was a 1971 or 72 Bear Tiger Cat that my brother-in-law had. He gave it to me. Here, have this. You can hunt with it. Okay. Babinga, 58 inches. Had holes everywhere. I'm like, what the F is this?
Oh.
He goes, yeah, I had a sight here, at a sight. I was like, So I said, I'll just use the holes. And I put sights on this stuff. I could never kill a deer with it. I could never kill a deer with it. So I just abandoned that, removed all that garbage, left the holes, and I killed a deer with it finally because I used instinctive shooting. And I had a cigarette in my mouth when I shot the deer.
Okay.
It was a Jersey thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, the nostalgia stuff, Rich, I was born in 85. I actually started bow hunting in 2000. I gun hunted 1 year prior to that because you had to be 14 to gun hunt in Michigan. And I'm so thankful that I feel like I caught the tail end of what I would, like what you're talking about. Because as a teenager, I'd go out to the local game area, and I'd go alone. I don't know if I was supposed to, but when I was 16 and 17, because they have some rules about public land and how you're supposed to be and stuff like that. But I'd go out there and I'd talk to these old guys, and they're all smoking. This is 25 years ago now, but it seems like the year 2000 is modern, right? But their favorite thing to do, and I've heard many people say this, right? The best thing you can do is say that you sat down your cigarette and then shot your buck, right? So that's, they always, the thing is like, well, doesn't that smoke scare the deer? And they say, no, I just have to set down the cigarette before I shoot my buck. That's the only.
And it is what it is. I mean, at the same time, I had the New York Mets baseball game in an earbud with the wire coming out of my pocket in my ear. So I'm listening to the baseball game, smoking a cigarette, and I just dropped the cigarette. Boom, shot the buck, done. That was great. I was like, okay, now what do I do? Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. But we started in 99, 2000. You had the full coveralls. We got them from Meyer.
Yeah.
So really to get in that monkey suit.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you guys have a Menards in Michigan?
We have them now, but as a child, I don't remember them.
Because I remember when first time I hunted Wisconsin, my wife picks me up. My wife and I fly into Milwaukee. My brother-in-law and daughter and sister-in-law pick me up. All right, what do you need? I need to get a Wisconsin license. They take me right to Menards in Wisconsin. I walk
Oh,
in and I said, I'm from Maryland. I need a non-resident license. The guy looks at me like I had two heads. He goes, well, thank you. He thought that was the greatest thing on the planet. He's like, you don't
oh,
get non-resident hunters here? There's not many. Okay, well, it was like 125 bucks. That's a bargain, man.
okay. Yeah. We got Menards in Michigan about 20 years ago. I don't know how long ago you're talking,
Yeah,
but
and they're
we
like
do we
basically they're like now you can't even buy hunting stuff from Menards anymore because it's so
yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah.
the liberals got a hold of it.
Okay. Yeah, see I grew up with Kmart,
Oh yeah,
Meyer, Walmart came in after high school, and my dad always tells the story of his deer rifle that he used, a Remington 742 Woodsmaster, was from J.C. Penney.
mm,
That's something.
yeah.
J.C. having guns, that was a clothing store as far as I thought.
My
But yeah,
first gun I ever bought, my mother bought it for me, was a Remington 870 Wingmaster shotgun, and she bought it from
yeah.
Sears.
Oh yeah, Sears. Yeah, yeah. They didn't have guns when I was a kid. Meyer and Kmart. I don't know if they still sell guns, but those were kind of the
Crazy.
places that had guns at the gun shop. But um,
So Don, I want to.
no,
We're at about an hour and a half. I want to say we're going
yeah.
to wind down here, but I really want to thank you for coming on. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, so I set up a separate Facebook page for the Phil Grable Signature SST.
Hmm.
I want to get that out there, and I didn't really want to. I kind of figured wait till the podcast, but look for that Phil Grable Signature SST. I'll try to share it out on different traditional pages and things like that
Hmm.
as I get everything together and available. I really plan on doing a website right now, but either Poppe Archery, that's my email address is poppearchery@gmail.com, or my Poppe Archery Facebook page, or now I've set up this Phil Grable Signature SST Facebook page. So any of those options are good ways, and I'll be putting all the Phil Grable stuff out on that Facebook page, which I think Facebook is actually Dinosaur page. Now it's Instagram, right, or something, but
Well, actually, I'm
oh
finding
well. And
Instagram
I
to
don't
be,
see any.
it's crap.
Okay.
Yeah, stick with Facebook and leave it alone.
Yeah.
Um, really,
Yep.
Instagram is more photo driven. I use it
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
have to use it. It's just all about promotion. Um, I've got a
Yeah.
drop time page. You got the drop time traditions / Rich Lopez
Mhm.
page or vice versa. And then I got my own personal page. So people can reach us out there, but I will be promoting you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll probably get some videos. I don't know if you had seen I had done a history kind of bear archery video on
I
YouTube.
would love to see a video
Um,
of you working on one of those risers as far as sanding is concerned.
well, I'd like to, yeah, start doing some more of the video stuff, and I don't even know what that's called. It's I started a YouTube page, archery history something, or I can't remember now. But I'll try. I want to get some Phil Grable videos together and things like that, and try to get out some more of that kind of stuff.
I'm kind of new to this, dude. So people are like, oh, we'd like to have some refinish, reworking videos. I'm like, Jesus. So I gotta put I gotta strap a GoPro to my head. So I think that's where it's going.
Yeah,
I'm 65 for Christ's sake. I mean, I
yeah.
gotta
No, you have.
retire.
No, people love that stuff, Rich. I mean, people watch videos of people chopping logs, or splitting logs and building cabins with
All
no
right. So the next
nobody
video I
even
put on
says
there,
anything.
I'm gonna be naked. I'm gonna just, yeah, that'll get them worked up.
Well, yeah, that's up to you. But I mean, you can make our video of you just sanding on a bow, and they just it's therapeutic to
It's
just
just
listen to
nuts.
this.
Yeah, and have waterfall noise in the
Yeah,
background. So it's almost like a Tai Chi thing.
there you go. Yeah, yeah,
So Don, I want to thank you so much for coming on with me tonight. Again, on behalf of Drop Time Traditions, God bless you. Hey guys, understand this. There's a lot of mental illness out there. I'm a big advocate for being aware of that. So if you see something, say something. If you know somebody, call them, ask them if they're all right. Just take care of them, love each other, and respect each other. That's all I can say. So anything else you want to throw on here?
Yeah, just thank you, Rich. This is a privilege to be able to have, have for you to have me on your platform so I can kind of tell people about these bows. I'm not a marketer or anything like that. So at least at the very least, people probably got to look at them.
Oh yeah,
Um, and so I just appreciate you having me on here and I like talking to you. So
love
it's
it,
a good
man.
time.
Love it. We'll be good. So you take care of yourself. God bless you. Good luck, and we will get this thing moving. All right.
Sounds
So
great, Rich. Thank you.
adios, MFers.